Mario & Luigi Dream Team was the first Mario and Luigi game released on the Nintendo 3DS, and also a follow-up to the best Mario & Luigi game, Bowser's Inside Story. I am personally a huge fan of this series, but I'll be honest, my interest in it kinda wanes when you get to the 3DS era games. Except for you, Superstar Saga Remake. I love you. Mwah. The original three Mario and Luigi games are just peak Mario spin-off titles, and then when I finally tried Dream Team for the first time, I was just bored. Nothing about it was awful or anything, but I also just wasn't having that much fun either. But it's been a while now, and I thought that this game deserves a second chance, since I never really got super far into the game. I'm also just kind of looking for any new content from this series that I might get any enjoyment from, because Brothership was kind of a letdown for me. The main thing that always irked me about Dream Team was its constant and drawn-out tutorials. This game feels the need to explain every single little detail of gameplay to you, and it is going to do it in the most drawn-out way possible. At the beginning of the game, you get a little tutorial battle against one of the main antagonists, and you would think that would be enough to get across the main mechanics of battles to the player. But no, immediately after this, they feel the need to have more tutorial battles that feature even more dialogue trying to constantly hold your hand through the entire process. And it's not like a gentle, kind holding hands, they're like gripping onto you, and when you try to pull away, they squeeze harder. You have the option to skip some of these earlier tutorials, but even when you select to do that, it makes you confirm multiple times that you want to skip the tutorial. And these are pretty much the only ones in the game that even have a skip option. With everything else, you have to sit through the whole thing, and there isn't any real way to speed it up. Anytime you get introduced to some new gimmick or ability, or honestly just anything really, you have to have a whole tutorial just for that one thing, and this happens over and over again. There were points where I was getting fairly close to the end, and the game still felt the need to give me step-by-step infant instructions on how to do something. Obviously, tutorials are good to have. It is important to explain how the game works for any newcomers or younger children that might be playing the game. But I also think that the degree to which tutorials are present kind of ruins certain parts of the game. You're not really given the ability to just discover things in this game or even figure out how to do anything on your own. There is a lot of joy to be had in actually playing a game instead of it being played for you. Don't tell me where to touch Luigi, I'll figure it out myself. Now, to be fair, previous games in this series did have this problem a little bit, but it wasn't nearly as drawn out or frequent. It is kind of funny because I felt like some enemy attacks in this game were much harder to understand than any puzzles or gimmicks, and you don't get any tutorials for those, you just die. Obviously, I much prefer that, but it does just kind of make me wonder why they felt the need to over-explain so much stuff in this game, but not anything that's actually kind of challenging. On top of this, it also takes a very long time for you to actually be able to use some of the core mechanics of the game. It takes over 2 hours to get hammers and even longer to get bros attacks. The beginning of this game really is just one big slog. These problems do get better as the game goes on, either because they are less frequent or I just started to get used to it. But man, this game just does not leave a good first impression. The amount of drawn-out dialogue is also pretty bad, which in combination with the tutorials means that you will just be constantly mashing buttons to get through it all as fast as you possibly can, which still isn't that fast because you wouldn't want to miss any of the dialogue, would you? But even though I still think this is all pretty bad, it's not quite as bad as I originally thought. When I first played this game, I actually just quit because of this, but this time around, it didn't feel as annoying to me. Maybe because I expected it this time, or maybe because I've now played games that have much worse pacing than this one. The good thing is that once you're free of the shackles of tutorialization and drawn-out dialogue, Dream Team is pretty enjoyable. Just like with the best Mario and Luigi games, they keep the fun and fresh ideas coming, so if you can get past the hurdle, there's a lot of fun stuff to see. The danger of this level of handholding, though, is that it kind of leaves a lot of people with a bad taste in their mouth, much like it did me. Sitting and reading baby's first video game tutorials can feel really draining and make you much more tempted to go play a game that respects your cognitive function. Traversal and general out-of-battle activities are your pretty standard Mario and Luigi affair. You have a big world split into different sections that you explore by jumping around and doing cool little bro moves with Mario and Luigi. By this point, it was their fourth time doing this, so it's no surprise that there isn't really much to say here. The main thing that's noticeable here is that the world is made up of actual 3D models instead of 2D sprite work like previous games. All of the characters are still sprites, and they do a pretty good job of making that look fairly unnoticeable. The characters don't look flat like they're from Paper Mario or anything. I will say that overall, I probably prefer the 2D environments from the older games. The 3D areas work fine, but they just look kinda plain in comparison. I think you can really see what I'm saying after they went back to 2D art for the remakes they did on 3DS, and I think it looks way better. But I do get why they wanted to try to take advantage of more 3D spaces, since it's not something they could really do on the hardware that they were working with before. And as we will get into later, they also utilize this in battles quite a bit. But the big overworld areas are not the only places you get to explore in this game. We also have access to these side-scrolling dream sections. These obviously take some inspiration from the sections in Bowser's Inside Story where you are, read the title again. Unlike that game, the dream sections are mostly split off into smaller little mini levels, most of which are optional, and then you have a larger dream section at the end of an area. My main big problem with these sections is that I just think they look kind of lame. The whole idea is that you're going inside of Luigi's dreams, and to me that opens up so many possibilities of cool things you could do. Dreams based on his memories, fears, or really just anything more abstract than the area you just played through, but now it's 2D. I like the art and the general dreamy aesthetic they go for here, but I think it's all kind of wasted on a pretty boring core concept. I hate to keep comparing it, but if you look at Bowser's Inside Story, they did a great job of making the inside sections feel visually unique from both the outside locations and even the other locations within Bowser. None of these places ever looked the same or got boring. But in Dream Team, right when you start to get bored of the location you're in, you get to go to the same location again, but slightly more abstract. It sucks too, because mechanically, I think they do some interesting things in the dream sections. The different things you can use Luigi to interact with are all pretty fun, and I do like the idea that doing things like poking Luigi or pulling on his mustache results in things happening within his dreams. And then you have the dream versions of the bros moves where you have like 1,000 Luigis forming different shapes and stuff, which is another really fun idea. All the stuff I've talked about here, while I have my nitpicks, is good. While I would never say it's some of the best in the series or anything, I can still appreciate that it's all pretty solid. The pacing kind of ruins it for me though, if I'm being honest. On top of the baby rail tutorials and the overdone dialogue, we also just have some really repetitive sections that take forever to get to the point. I feel like every 5 minutes in this game I'm told to go get or find a blank amount of objectives so I can get to the next area and do the exact same thing all over again. It becomes really grating really fast. I wanted to just marathon through this game so I could get this out quicker, but I ended up taking some pretty big breaks in between sessions. This game is one of the longest in the whole series, and I don't really think it's for any good reason. This game would be so much better if they just condensed some of this stuff down. One area this game basically nailed, though, is the combat, because it would be really bad if they hadn't nailed that down, since the first game kind of already nailed that down, and this is the fourth. The battle system in this game takes a lot from Bowser's Inside Story. Even though most Mario and Luigi games keep the same core gameplay, they do usually change up how certain things work or add some new gimmicks to shake things up a little. But here we have the same typical Mario and Luigi combat, with stuff returning from that last game like badges and bros moves being obtained in the exact same way. While in many ways this just feels like more Inside Story but with no Bowser, the game does also introduce a ton of new things. Since the game takes advantage of 3D environments, we now have a ton of attacks that involve enemies coming at you from the background or foreground. I think occasionally this can give you a little too much to have to pay attention to, but overall it just allows there to be more variety with the types of enemies you fight and the types of attacks you have to respond to. A lot of the bros attacks have either been reworked or created from scratch to now make use of the 3D environments, along with some also using gimmicks like motion controls. For the most part, I'm fine with this. I will say that I do kind of miss the old shell attack. It was simpler and faster, and now it's more flashy but takes longer. When I originally played this game, I brushed past the dream battles as barely different and kind of underwhelming, and I think that's honestly the main thing I disagree with myself on now. It's not a ginormous change up like Bowser was, but it's still decently different, and switching between the dream and overworld battle systems helps keep things fresh. In the dream battles, instead of having two characters you control, you instead just have Mario, who is powered up by Luigi using his dream abilities. This means that Mario has extra HP and BP, on top of his basic attacks also now dealing damage to multiple enemies at once, instead of just one at a time. You also now fight big hordes of enemies rather than just like 2 or 3. All of these changes are fun and different and cool and all, but the main thing I really like about the Dream Battles is that you now have access to Luiginary attacks that replace the normal Bros attacks. These all involve getting a bunch of Luigis to form a big ball or big hammer or other stuff, doing damage to a whole lot of enemies all at once. I found the Luiginary attacks to probably be my favorite thing in the game. They are visually funny, of course, but they are also super fun to pull off. The hammer and ball are some of my favorites. Originally, I looked at Dream Team's battle system as boring because I thought it didn't do enough to change up the formula, but honestly, now going back to it, I kind of appreciate the simplicity. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, they did what works while offering fun little twists on the formula here and there, and I think that works great for this game. Even in the slower parts of the game that were really starting to get on my nerves, I still went out of my way to go and get into battles because they're just fun. Giant battles didn't do it for me though. They were a fine gimmick and inside story, probably my least favorite part of that game, but it was still fine and you got some cool moments out of it. Dream Team Giant Battles asked the bold question of what if we took those and made them more annoying. This is probably the most egregious example of this game just doing something because Inside Story did it. They aren't the worst thing in the world or anything, but I would just generally prefer it if they weren't here. Like I've said, I think a lot of stuff in this game works really well, and overall it is a perfectly fine entry in a really good series. But man, I feel like it could have been another favorite of mine with just a few fixes. The stuff that works here really works, but the stuff that holds it back really holds it back. Sure, I enjoyed my time with it and would say it was a fun game, but I have no desire to replay it. If I want to replay a Mario and Luigi game, I'll probably just play one of these. This game just feels so bloated, which really sucks because I think one of the main things I enjoy about most Mario RPGs is the lack of bloat. All that said though, I did enjoy my time with this game, far more than I thought I would, honestly. Gonna go back to yoinking my Ouija now.